They're all there.
Yeah, I guess it's his cousin's wife passed away.
30-some years old.
Something in Jacksonville is what Kathy told me.
Yeah.
I'm praying. I really am. Okay.
Conference recording has started.
It's 5 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get the Clewiston City Commission meeting starting. The City Commission is meeting in the Clewiston Chambers at Clewiston City Hall, 115 West Ventura Avenue, Clewiston, Florida, at 5 p.m. on Monday, September the 21st. 4 of the commissioners are present. Vice Mayor Atkinson is out of town at a family funeral. The city staff is present, and there is public in attendance. We also invite the public to call us via telephone conference call. The number is 863-254-4038. Conference ID number 994729. The Clewiston City Commission meeting is now called to order. We'll be live on City's Facebook page at facebook.com/City of Clewiston and the city's website at clewiston-fl.gov/meetings. We received no public comments via email to the city clerk today before noon, but public comments are allowed via telephone, again at 863-254-4038, conference ID number 994729. At the time the agenda item is being considered, we will unmute the phones and allow public comments. Members of the public, when addressing the commission via phone, please state your name for the record, address, and contact information, as well as the agenda item that you wish to speak about. Be advised that the City Commission may take actions on items not listed on the agenda. If this occurs, public comments will be received at the time the item is considered, provided you speak up during the time that the phone's unmuted. We are holding virtual public City Commission meetings pursuant to Executive Order Number 20-69, 20-112, 20-123, 20-139, Executive Order Number 20-150, 20-179, and 20-193. Municipalities may conduct meetings of the governing boards without having a quorum of its members present. We do have a quorum present today, and we are using communications media technology as provided by Section 120.545B2 of the Florida statutes. At this time, we have Pastor Carlos Roque from behalf of the Clewiston Ministerial Association to lead us in prayer. Please stand.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
All right, let's just open up in prayer. Father God, we just thank you this evening for your goodness, your grace, your mercy over the great city of Clewiston. We just thank you, Father God, that your hand is upon this city. I thank you that your favor shines upon this city. I thank you, Father God, for the elected officials that govern this city. I just thank you that you give them wisdom, clarity in their decision making and what they do. Father God, and we just thank you for that. We thank you, Lord, that we're a healthy city. We're whole. Thank you, Father God, that our schools are doing well. I thank you, Father God, that our businesses are growing. The city is growing. I just thank you for it in Jesus' name. And we just thank you, Father God. And we thank you for this land that is prosperous. We thank you that your favor shines upon this city like never before. We just give you all the praise, honor, and glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. City Manager, are there any changes, additions to the agenda?
No, Madam Mayor or Commissioners.
Okay. At this time, we do allow public comments. If there's anyone here in the public that would like to come forward, we'll go ahead and unmute the line. Please press *1 to unmute the line. Okay. Is there any public comments at this time? Again, we will allow public comments at each agenda item. Okay, not hearing any public comments, we'll go ahead and mute the lines. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to accept.
I have a motion and a second. That was a motion by Commissioner Peterson and a second by Commissioner Rodriguez. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The first item on the agenda tonight is a final public hearing of fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. We're a little early. I know the posted time is at 5:30. Should we go to something else?
Yes, I would.
Okay,
Yes,
all right, okay. All right, so let's go to the ordinances. We have an ordinance for the first reading, ordinance number 2020-03, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, allowing the reconstruction of single-family homes on 50-foot wide lots in the R2 and R3 zoning districts, as long as an occupied single-family home existed on the same lot within the last 7 years, amending section 110-287, lot and building requirements, providing for inclusion in the Code of Ordinances, conflict, severability, and effective date. Okay. I know that we had discussion about this before. Is there any discussion from our city manager or from the city attorney?
Ma'am, I'll defer to the attorney. He made very minor revisions.
Okay.
Mayor, the only change is to, on page 2, is the asterisk.
Yes, sir.
It's a change from 5 to 7 years for people wanting to construct a single-family home on a small lot.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any questions and comments from the commission? All right, this is the first reading. We'll go ahead. Is there any comments from the members of the public here tonight? We'll go ahead and unmute the lines. Please press *1 if you would like to speak in regards to first reading of ordinance number 2020-03, extending the time for people to build on the 50-foot wide lots. Okay. There not being any public comments, we'll go ahead and mute the phones again. And the recommended motion is to approve ordinance number 2020-03 on first reading and set the public hearing for October the 19th, 2020.
So moved.
Have a motion by Commissioner Peterson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner McGahee. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next ordinance is ordinance number 2020-04, an ordinance of the City of Clewiston, Florida, Code of Ordinances, modifying section 98-189, monitoring of discharges. B, access to facilities, and section 98-190, requirements to prevent, control, and reduce stormwater pollutants by the use of best management practices, providing for incorporation into the code, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. And I know that we have our city engineer here with us, Andy Tilton, and he looks like he's ready to speak on this. Yes, sir, you have the floor.
Andy Tilton for the record. I can speak or I can just answer questions. Basically, this is to cover some items that FDEP, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, requested under the city's National Pollutant Discharge Elimination, or NPDES, permit. And so that's the reason for these modifications that are being proposed now.
Okay, is there any specific questions to the engineer about this?
I just had a question with regard to the application of this to commercial and residential, because it at first when I read it, it looked like it just applies to industrial areas, but this is also applicable in commercial and residential?
Correct.
Okay. So when they say, shall let me just read this. Development or redevelopment on any size site zoned for industrial, commercial, or residential use of more than 3 living units where the development or redevelopment does not otherwise qualify for an exemption for water quality treatment by the Water Management District shall incorporate specific design features into the site for purposes of water quality treatment. So what does that entail? What are specific design features? And is there a huge cost associated with that?
They've left it very broad, Commissioner, so that the designer / owner has some range of types of things that they can do. It could be a wet detention pond. It could be a dry detention swale. It could be retention. It could be underground storage. It could be a proprietary structure that provides a water quality improvement.
So it sounds like there may be a substantial cost or the need for additional area, and we're already struggling with the ability to fit like apartments in certain areas and things like that. So do we have to implement this as it's worded, or it seems like it's more costs that are going to go into projects? So I don't want to do that to someone if we don't have to do it.
It will entail more cost, whether it's more land to do something that's a lower cost feature, or it's less land but a higher cost feature. A lot of the proprietary products go in very small footprints, some of them underground, so you can work over the top of them with a parking lot or things, but they may cost $70,000 or $100,000. You weigh that against the cost of not developing a half-acre of land because you put another pond on it. So yes, there are trade-offs depending on which site somebody is working on.
So to me, that looks like a huge limitation on the space that we have available within the city limits. If someone wanted to build 3 apartments or 4 apartments, let's say, then this is going to trigger the need for that, right?
It could. And we're reading through this where it talks about getting a permit from the Water Management District. For certain types of redevelopment, there are allowances for developing or only providing water quality for the additional impervious coverage. So if you had a site today that has 60 or 70% impervious coverage with buildings and parking, and you end up with something that's 80%, then you only have to do the differential, treat that differential. You wouldn't necessarily have to treat the entirety of the site.
Well, what concerns me is I don't have as big an issue with industrial or commercial, but we need residential development within the city, apartments and things like that. And I don't want to be a deterrent again with us outpricing ourselves, with the project being outpriced because we're going to put an additional burden on the developer. So is this something that we have to do, or is it an option?
I don't, from the DEP's perspective, it's not an option. And I will tell you, most of the other communities that I work in have very similar ordinances.
My understanding, it is part of their review of our permit requirements, and they're stipulating that we will pursue this. The other part of it is this is part of the governor's initiative during the last couple of legislative sessions when they've ramped up the state's emphasis on water quality management. And it does affect new development. Obviously, existing development, to my knowledge, wouldn't be impacted. But
redevelopment will be impacted, but it's to a lesser extent depending on how much coverage the existing site has.
And to speak to it, for example, the new apartments that went in on W.C. Owen last year, I guess,
right,
they incorporated some of what Andy was describing under the parking lot to meet their space requirements. Well, certainly that impacted cost. But how much more impactful this guideline will be than what was done there, I don't really know that there'll be a huge difference in application.
Is there a huge difference?
I can't speak to the apartments because I'm not sure exactly what they did. But that is one of the options available, is to do underground storage and the water is dispersed through ground flow rather than a surface flow.
But was he required to do that under the ordinances as they're written now? And this doesn't change that, or does this change and increase the burden?
I'm not sure how big that project was. If it was more than 2 acres of impervious, they had to get a water management district permit anyway. And so they would have had to meet the current water management district criteria, which would have required the water quality. So that part would be no change.
Andy, you said it had to be more than 2 acres?
For it to be required to get a water management district permit, if it's less than 2 acres of impervious coverage, then the city is the sole permitter of that and should be following the same rules and regulations. And I know the technical review committee tries to, so it shouldn't be a large change for them either. It's just whether or not they had to get a water management district permit based on the size of the project.
So do we have any discretion over the number 3 there, or that's their?
Section 3.
No, that residential use of more than 3 living units.
I think that's part of the standard.
Correct.
And that's basically on the size that's usually attributed with 3 units or more.
Well, I just think that we've had some interest in building 2 duplexes, and this would trigger that requirement, right?
If they're on the same piece of property, if they were permitted at 2 separate times on 2 separate tracts of land, you could circumvent that.
2 platted lots.
I just am not for putting any additional costs on development in our area.
But it doesn't sound to me like we have a choice.
Well, the challenge is, how do you continue to have development and not have better water quality, which the state's going to keep pushing for, and ultimately affects the lake and the city's ability to meet best management practices and TMDL requirements and other governmental requirements.
And for us to get approval for a stormwater discharge permit, period, we have to meet the state standards. So
right.
They've got us by that. When our permit comes up for renewal periodically, I don't know how often they do that.
Every 5 years.
That's what I thought, but I thought Florida was probably.
So is it something we can delay for any longer?
They've been pushing us to do it for how long?
We were supposed to have done this 2 years ago.
So we've delayed.
So let me just, I know that most properties, when you look at developments and you look at that there's a retention pond, even on any commercial property that I know in the city of Clewiston over the last several years, there's always been some kind of drainage, and most of the time it's been a retention pond. Many, many, many years ago, Frank Jones brought up about the land just north of the city, north of the C-139, I think this is that canal right there, C-139? C-21, I'm sorry, C-21. Just north of that, that's all owned by the Water Management District. And his idea and his thought, and he was an engineer, he saw that land north of the C-21 could be used by the city for water filtration and for some of the requirements that we had within the city, so that the individual property owners wouldn't have to bear the cost of, what we're talking about tonight. And so, I don't know if that's a possibility, that could be used as for us. I don't know does that sound like it's feasible or possible?
There's land available.
Yeah.
The real question is, what is on the land today?
Yeah, it's what they call the reclaimed lake bottom.
Right.
Yeah.
And if that's considered wetlands, it may cost more to develop it into a filter marsh, which is what I would recommend doing there because of the land elevation.
Right.
To have the minimal amount of construction work. It would also require that all the water that you wanted to treat be pumped over there and then gravity discharge out of it. So, it's certainly, as an engineer, I love the project. I'm just not sure how economical and how much that would cost to be able to do that if the city was also able to get the Water Management District to lease the land or somehow give that allowance.
Okay.
And then that would only benefit the property that would be able to drain to it or pump to it.
Well, and from that standpoint, Manager, I think most of the city could, because the system is a pump system now. It's just building a discharge from a pump under the C-21 to get it into the water treatment area. That would be where the cost would be.
It wouldn't be one of those deals where we would just get credit for having that area. It would have to physically benefit the drainage system.
I believe in this case it would have to physically do the cleanup and not just be a trade-off.
Yeah, because it's a big, huge filtration marsh. I mean, that's
Sure.
basically what it is. I mean, it's fallow, not fallow, but it's just, you know.
It's not treating much more than the rainfall.
Right, it's getting it there, yeah. So anyway, this is the first reading of this, but I think this is something that we should look at, Randy. I know that I've not discussed this with you at all, but it's something that has been discussed in the past. I know that we already have a lease with the Water Management District on all the boat basin area. And that since this is the governor's, you know, it's been a push for a while, and I think we all want to do our part, but we don't want undue burdens on our existing property owners or new property owners with the limited space that we have within the city of Clewiston. And that was Frank's idea, that we already have small lots. We already have our compressed, so to speak. So by using that land for not to take existing land within the city as filtration or for stormwater discharge, or that it would be a great place for it to be a win-win, basically.
Yeah, and this ordinance would preclude us from doing things.
Correct.
Like that. You can have publicly maintained storm areas. We have them in school properties, and the city has some. And we're looking at improvements along Ventura. We just applied for a grant to do some of the same kind of stuff that would offset the stormwater runoff issues there that exist from the existing development. So nothing would be precluding us from doing what the mayor described for this property. This is primarily going to affect any city development or private development that occurs in the meantime. And what they're doing is kicking communities off as you prepare to get your permit renewal, and they're more than likely not going to renew them if you don't.
It just irritates me because we have a sewer system within the city of Clewiston. There are lots of communities that don't have that benefit and are polluting a whole lot more than the city of Clewiston. So we struggle as a community to find people that are willing to invest and develop within our city limits. And this is just one more cost that we're going to throw at them, which means less development, you know, and
well, it's already a high bar, and the costs are significant for meeting the current requirements previous to this. So it's not going away, and then listening to some of the regulatory discussions that the state's having and the governor is emphasizing, there's going to be more. Now, hopefully there'll be some grant resources and other funds that are going to help cities do what, like the mayor's describing, projects that might limit the impact on private properties, particularly in areas where it's really densely developed, and it's obvious that none of the new development is going to benefit the old part of the city that's already developed. So we're going to likely have to do that just for existing development, particularly when we have what we used to call frog gaggers, like we had Friday and LaBelle saw yesterday, 5 to 7 inches of rain in one event. That's untenable, you know, those kind of downpours in our existing development.
It's a shame. It's that the reason I know is because we've looked at the possibility of building apartments within the city of Clewiston, and you cannot afford to build apartments right now. I mean, it's right there. And then, so, boom, this is over the edge. And,
of course, as Andy pointed out, though, this is going to probably bring us closer to a more level playing field than we are currently enjoying than with some of our peers who are getting scrutinized, you know, for their wastewater and stormwater. But this is not going to be the end of it. The state's going to continue. It wouldn't surprise me, particularly with the discussions around sea level rise. I don't want to get off on that, but that the bar keeps going up for the triggers. For example, for a long time it was, how many year flood, that we had to meet for rain events on new development. I've forgotten what the current.
For allowable discharge, it was a 25-year, for a 100-year, it was for building floor elevations.
Yeah, but also for the amount of water you have to retain on site.
That's the 25-year, 3-day.
Yeah, and that probably is gonna get tougher as time goes on. They're gonna raise that to where you will have to retain or treat water in greater quantity before it's released. Because now you're exempted basically for any water that's extraordinary beyond that, like a 100-year flood event or whatever, you're not penalized. But I don't think that'll always be the case.
And Commissioner, it'll be real site-specific as to whether or not it's more detrimental or not. If somebody were to take the Winn-Dixie site and take the building down, build apartments there, it's already impervious, this wouldn't require them to do anything additional. If you took a site that was vacant lots to the east, and you took vacant lots and you built an apartment complex on them, then it would kick in and be that requirement.
It's just things like that. I know the school board's been trying to look at teacher housing and possibility, and that's going to kick right in. It's going to be additional costs. And just, there may be nothing we can do about it, but I just don't like it.
I understand not liking it.
And again, this is the first reading. Is there any other comments? Is there anything that you would wish to say on this? Commissioner Rodriguez or Commissioner Peterson, is there anything?
I'd like to ask a question. Forgive me. If you're a developer and you've done apartments here in the city, if you have any comments on that, or what's impacted your cost, or what? I mean, because I know you follow all the to the guidelines. What you've got apartment. I know you've built some apartments there. What is?
Yeah, I mean,
kind of clear that up. Just to entail.
Every little thing that happens adds to the cost. This is just going to add to the cost. And if you're trying to develop, have a certain year of payback, yeah, I'm going to think twice about it. Either you get the land cheap enough to do it, which isn't going to happen right now. The more regulations, the more red tape, the more bureaucracy, it just adds and adds and adds. I'm not saying it's not needed. I mean, I believe in water quality, but yeah, there's nothing we can do about it. And ultimately, if the development goes in, the consumer's going to pay. Prices will keep going up.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, if there was land available, I think there'd be a lot of people want to build apartments now because there's still a huge demand for rental property and homeowner. But anyway, I don't know if I helped you out.
Yeah, the thing is that all
I would say this, it will impact density, because a lot of them, to avoid that additional cost of packing it in, if you will, like these apartments did over here, going under the parking lot. A lot of commercial does that now, and that was thought unheard of a decade or more ago to do that because of the cost. But they found out the property values had gone up enough that it was cheaper to do that than trying to acquire more property. What you will see is it will impact density, which may or may not be a bad thing for people who have enough land that they just won't build as many units. Now, that obviously goes to their bottom line, whether they're going to have enough units producing revenue back to make a project, but development community will figure out a way of doing it as economically as they can.
It either goes to the developer's bottom line or it goes to the consumer.
And one of them, or shared.
Right, and when we already have consumers that struggle to buy, it's unfortunate that it will go there, because that's probably where it's going to go.
Eventually, yeah.
But right now, if you build a building even before this is passed, you still got to meet criteria, right? I mean, if I want to build a house,
going up a little higher.
It's just going to cost more. Yeah. I don't know if you can get around this, like the mayor said. This is just
it's tied to DEP or hamstrung.
Unfortunately.
Andy, I have a question for you. I mean, currently most property owners that are over, 2 acres, they're using retention ponds, and that's still gonna be an allowable use?
Absolutely. I mean, for instance, the Gateway,
The
project that
PUD,
just came through here for a minor revision recently, they have several open stormwater ponds that they plan for that development, which will have some single family, have some multifamily apartment type, dwellings.
Yeah, and the other impact that it has is you'll see more properties probably going up in height versus more impervious surface. They figure out ways to adjust, but,
But this only applies to properties that are larger than 2 acres?
Actually not. It actually applies down to, I mean,
The
some parts of it apply down.
that's part of the change.
Okay.
They've, I guess, determined that that's too big of a gap or loophole, so they're closing the gap a little.
Okay.
They've now tied it to units.
2 units, so that's where the 3 units come in versus the acres, okay.
Let me ask you a question, Randy. If I'm gonna build a house in the city, okay, and this is a question I don't know the answer, but I'll ask. Is it the city's responsibility to have, runoff, drainage to run off a house, or if I'm gonna build a house, is it
For a single lot house?
Single lot.
On a typical lot, there's minimal requirements because they will take advantage of the city stormwater system.
Right.
But if it's, I guess it depends on the size. If you build a big enough one that, or you wanted to cover more impervious surface,
Yes, sir.
then it would be some impacts. This typically wouldn't happen on a single lot house.
Well, this is
a
three
multi-
living units, so more than 3 living units.
No, but I was just wondering
Yeah.
if for the single
Currently,
impact,
yeah.
what would impact that on?
Commissioner, what would apply is you go to, 2 right under the first one that we've been looking at, that all sites would have to do certain things for erosion control and during construction.
Okay.
They wouldn't have to put in their own detention facilities and things like that.
Yes.
But there's certain other things they would have to do.
Yeah, the silt fence, things like that to control the erosion, which is a good thing too.
But that's minimal
So
cost.
that impacts other people.
But again, it's all cost. That silt fence that we see is $2 a foot. Plus how many ever feet you need, just multiply that by 2 to put it in and then take it back out and dispose of it.
All right, Andy, thank you. Any comments from any of the public tonight, in person? Okay, we'll go ahead and unmute the lines. And please hit *1 if you have any comments on the first reading of ordinance number 2020-04. And this is in regards to, prevent, control, and reduce stormwater pollutants by the use of best management practices. Not hearing any public comments, we'll go ahead and mute the line. And we have read the ordinance by title, and the recommendation is to approve ordinance number 2020-04 on first reading and set the public hearing for October 19th, 2020. But I would like for Andy and the city manager to get together and see if there's any other options as far as city lands in the city that can be used for stormwater, or looking at that property on the north side of the lake. North side of the city, in between us and the lake. Recommended motion again is to approve ordinance number 2020-04 on first reading and set the public hearing for October the 19th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Ordinance number 2020-05. This is the first hearing. An ordinance of the City of Clewiston of Hendry County, Florida, focusing on excessive nutrient levels in the City of Clewiston water bodies, providing for title, providing for definitions, providing for findings, providing for purpose and intent, providing for applicability, providing for timing or fertilizer applications, providing for fertilizer-free zones, providing for fertilizer contact, application rates, providing for fertilizer application practices, providing for management of grass clippings and vegetative matter, providing for exemptions, providing for training, providing for licensing of commercial applicators, providing for enforcement, providing for penalties, providing for appeal, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the codes of laws and ordinance, providing for captions, and providing for an effective date. That is the ordinance number 2020-05. And Andy, I see you're still standing there.
Point of order, you probably should go back to public hearings to say we're scheduled for 5:30.
You can continue on with
Thank
that.
you. Okay. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm fine.
Okay. Is there anything that you wanted to add in regards to this?
I have a question.
There is a typo on page 5. It should be XI instead of XII in section 5.
Okay. If you'll repeat that for the record again, Jerry.
Page 5, section 5, applicability, it talks about specifically exempted by section 12, that should be section 11.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner McGahee?
Is this a similar type ordinance that we really don't have any say over? We have to do this? Okay.
Yeah, and the purpose of this is for the Basin Management Action Plan, for the Caloosahatchee. We are fortunate enough to have discharge both to the lake and to the Caloosahatchee, both of which are impaired. And so one of the benefits of having an ordinance like this is we get the city gets some credit against other expenditures they might have to make to meet the Basin Management Action Plan goals of reducing nutrients to the water.
I just hate ordinances on the book that are really difficult to enforce, and this looks like it's one of them.
It is a challenge to enforce, yes, because it does still allow all of the individual residents to do their own application. And when they do it and how they do it, it's their integrity.
That's right.
But this is reflective of the state, so this should have an impact on the communities north of us, no?
Every community that's going through is in the Basin Management Action Plan for either the lake or the river, as well as other water bodies across the state are being asked to do the same thing.
Okay.
And like I say,
So that'll improve that sheet flow coming down.
it should improve the quality of the water in that flow. It's not gonna change the amount of water, it just changes the quality of the
The
water.
nutrient load.
Right.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the commission or comments? Okay, any questions or comments from the public that are here? We'll unmute the line. If there's any public comment in regards to ordinance number 2020-05, first reading, setting the public hearing for October the 19th, 2020. Any public comment? Not hearing any public comments, we'll go ahead and mute the line. Recommended motion is to approve ordinance number 2020-05 on first reading and set the public hearing for October the 19th, 2020.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you, Andy.
Well, again,
Okay, so we're back to our final public hearing of the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. It is it's 5:38, not 5:30. A copy of the fiscal year 2020-2021 tentative budget is part of the September 9th, 2020 City Commission tentative millage and budget hearing agenda and can be viewed on the city's website. And a copy of the fiscal year 2020-2021 proposed final budget may be obtained from the Finance Department. This is a public hearing. The purpose of this public meeting is to accept input from all interested parties relative to the discussion, consideration, and final approval of the city's 2020-2021 proposed millage rate and operating budget. We will be offering opportunity to all in attendance to speak in regard to the matter of our new budget and ask that all speakers identify themselves by name and address. At this time, our Finance Director, Sherry Howell, will note the percentage increase in millage over the rollback rate needed to fund the 2021 operating budget.
The City Commission proposes a millage rate of 6.5314 mils, which reflects a percentage change of 4.81% over the rollback rate of 6.2318. The certified gross taxable value received from the Hendry County property appraiser totals $259,056,900 $50,600. The ad valorem taxes utilizing the millage rate of 6.5314 total $1,691,963, or $1,607,365 for budgeting purposes. The $1,607,365 represents 95% of the taxes calculated and is compliant with the trend process. The rollback millage rate of 6.2318 generates $1,614,352, or $1,533,634 for budgeting purposes. The budget difference between the two millage rates represents approximately $73,731. The City Commission proposes a capital and operating budget of $31,152,955 for fiscal year 2020-2021. This meeting constitutes the second of two hearing processes and was announced to the general public through notices published as required by law. During this hearing, the following agenda will be addressed. The Commission will discuss the 2020-2021 millage and operating budget and allow citizen input as appropriate. We will provide the reading by title of the millage resolution number 2020-54. The Commission will adopt millage resolution number 2020-54. We will provide the reading by title of the budget resolution number 2020-55. The Commission will adopt budget resolution number 2020-55.
Okay, at this time, fiscal year 2020-2021, final budget hearing is open for discussion for public input, followed by discussion by the Clewiston City Commission. And this resolution number 2020-54 is the resolution of the City of Clewiston, Florida, adopting a millage rate for the levy of ad valorem taxes for fiscal year 2020-2021. Okay, any public comments, please come forward and state your name for the record. If we'll go ahead and unmute the lines. Okay. Again, this public hearing in regards to fiscal year 2020-2021 and our resolutions 2020-54 and 2020-55 for the Clewiston City Commission budget. Are there any public comments on the telephone tonight? If so, please state your name for the record. Okay, not hearing any public comments. We'll go ahead and mute the line. All right, any questions or comments by the Commission or by City staff? Is there anything else that you would like to add?
No.
Just thank you to all who participated in many hours of review and production of this budget product. Particularly congratulate our finance department for the efforts they gave forth and all the departments that provided input. I feel really positive about the effort that went into it, and the process we used this year will continue to improve on it. But this is a plan that goes a long way, in my opinion, if carried out as anticipated, to addressing many of the financial concerns that the city has identified in recent years.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Randy. Any other comments for the Commission? If not, I'll go ahead and ask the City Finance Director to state for the record the taxing authority, the proposed millage rate to be adopted, the rollback millage rate, and the percentage change the proposed millage rate represents over the rollback rate.
The Clewiston City Commission, as taxing authority, proposes a final tax on all property located within the City of Clewiston, Florida, at the rate of 6.5314 mils for the fiscal year 2020-2021. The rate of 6.5314 mils represents 4.81% increase over the 6.2318 rollback millage rate as defined by the Florida statute.
Okay. And I'll ask you to read the millage resolution number 2020-54 by title, please.
Resolution number 2020-54, a resolution of the City of Clewiston, Florida, adopting a millage rate for the levy of ad valorem taxes for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Okay. Is there a motion for the adoption of the millage resolution 2020-54? I have a motion by Commissioner Peterson. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Commissioner McGahee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. This City Finance Director please read Budget Resolution number 2020-55 by title?
Resolution number 2020-55, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, adopting the budget for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Any other discussion on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion for the adoption of Budget Resolution number 2020-55.
So moved.
That is for 2020-55. I have a motion by Commissioner Rodriguez. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Peterson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we'll go ahead and close the budget hearing, since we have voted on both resolutions as required by the public hearing requirement.
Please adjust that air conditioning. It's a little chilly in here, please.
Andy's got it too.
Thank you.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm here with the right. I have we've covered the ordinances, and we moved to the resolutions.
I know it's, did we do 5? Yes.
Yeah, so if full resolutions, I'll turn this over to the city manager and walk us through each one. The first one is 2020-56.
The commission discussed this extensively, but before you, a resolution that adjusts the monthly electric rates to reflect the bulk power cost adjustments and the rate stabilization fund adjustment. The resolution aligns the monthly electrical rates contained in the Code of Ordinances with the city's tariff sheets as filed with the Florida Public Services Commission. It also provides for an increase in the rate stabilization fund reserves to a target level of 20% of the projected annual bulk power cost in accordance with the board's consensus direction following the presentation by the city staff and the FMTA, of which we're a member, on April 12th of 2020. You have the document before you. I don't know if the city attorney has any comments. He recommended that we bring this back with the power cost adjustment information, so that necessitated some changes to the previous document, and you see the language versus what was there previously. So I'll defer to the city attorney if he has any comments, and then any city staff if you have any question, I think they're on the line as well.
Mayor, this is consistent with your practice for many years, and the practice of the bulk power cost adjustment has never been really laid out in your resolution. And that's all really this does, is it documents and lays out how the staff makes these power adjustments each time they do it.
And also, if I'm not mistaken, it also increases the reserve amount.
It actually sets a
So
target.
it says a target, right, on average it was like 10%, I think.
It's been averaging that, but I don't think there was a floor
Right.
target.
Okay. All right. I don't know if our utility director, if he wishes to make any comments. Didn't know if he was on the line. Okay. All right. Just star one. Danny, if you wish to make a comment. Okay. I know we've talked about.
I'm good at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any members of the public that wish to make a comment? This again is resolution number 2020-56, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, revising the monthly electrical rates as contained in Appendix A, Section 18 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Clewiston, pursuant to Section 74-113 of the Clewiston Code of Ordinances to reflect bulk power cost adjustments and a rate stabilization fund adjustment, and providing for an effective date. Let's see, we'll go ahead and unmute the lines. Is there any public comments in regards to resolution number 2020-56? This is in regards to the rate stabilization fund. Not hearing any public comments. Are there any from the public in attendance tonight? Not hearing any. The recommended motion is to approve resolution number 2020-56. I have a motion by Commissioner Peterson. Second by Commissioner Rodriguez. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
2020-57.
Okay, the next two items are really, tandem items. One of them, both of them cover our mosquito control contract. The provisions allow for renewal. There is no, rate increase in either of them. One of them is for the ground coverage and one is for the aerial coverage with our current contract with, Clark Environmental Mosquito Management, Inc. The first one would be in the amount of $79,380 is covered by Resolution 2020-57.
Okay. Any questions of the commission? This is resolution number 2020-57, a resolution of the City of Clewiston, Florida, approving the renewal of the 2019 aerial mosquito control contract between the City of Clewiston and Clark Environmental Mosquito Management, Incorporated. Any comments from the attorney? I know this is an extension that's in the contract.
The first extension, 2 are allowed.
Okay, all right. Any comments from the public? We'll unmute the lines for anyone on the telephone that would wish to make a public comment in regards to the aerial mosquito control contract extension. Or renewal, I should say. Hit *1 if there's any public comment. Not hearing any. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 2020-57? Have a motion by Commissioner Peterson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McGahee. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. And as the city manager mentioned, resolution number 2020-58 is also part of the discussion he just, or information he just shared. And again, this is a renewal of the 2019 ground mosquito control contract between the City of Clewiston and Clark Environmental Mosquito Management. Resolution of the City of Clewiston, Florida, approving the renewal of the 2019 ground mosquito control contract between the City of Clewiston and Clark Environmental Mosquito Management, Incorporated. Okay?
Mayor, I got a question.
Yes.
And Randy, you may want, maybe you can answer this. I know it hasn't been a normal year there for mosquito spraying because, I don't know, because of the virus. I don't know, because of the lack of, I attribute it for the lack of activities that we had. So I know every time during the year when we have Halloween, we got football games, we've got all these different functions going on. We seem to, to have the product, whether it's ground or in the air. This hasn't been a normal year. Now, have we used them less? Have we put less product out? Do we have more credit for towards the end of the year this year? That they're still from last year's spraying contract? Yes.
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 It's we will have a carryover, a significant carryover, which is abnormal. That's not the normal.
Right.
We're going to be using it a good bit based on current events with the rain in the coming days. So it'll a chunk of it will still go out before the end of the fiscal year. But I think it's safe to say we won't be maximizing the budget this fiscal year with less than 30 days, two weeks less.
Right.
But there'll be a significant carryover, which I'm told from Sherry is unusual.
It's unusual.
A lot of years we've run a little bit short.
Yeah, and that's the good thing is hopefully that'll help build a reserve in there for that bad year that's eventually going to come.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Again, this is resolution number 2020-58, approving the renewal of the 2019 ground mosquito control contract between the City of Clewiston and Clark Environmental Mosquito Management. An amount not to exceed $108,637.44. Is there any comments from the public? Are there any comments? It's unmuted, right? Any comments from the public on the telephone in regards to item number 8, which is resolution number 2020-58? Hearing no public comments, recommended motion is to approve resolution number 2020-58.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Commissioner Rodriguez. Is there a second? A second by Commissioner Peterson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Mr. Martin?
Yes, next item, number 9 is the resolution 2020-59. This is regarding the Florida Municipal Power Agency as you know, as all of this knows, they provide assistance as a member of their organization. And they assist with procurement arrangements of various services and products. And this specific one refers to an emergency events that may cause disruption to the city's normal purchasing operations in terms of expediting emergency type needs. Those are really the only comments I have. This is a required approval by the board to authorize the use of this process. I'll defer to the staff or city attorney if they have any comments on it. But it is an agreement that, as I understand it, the city has participated in a number of years.
Mayor, this agreement provides the necessary backup to the state of Florida and federal government so that there is a clear line between the funding and the procurement. And this was suggested by the FMPA for all its members to make sure that in a state of emergency, there wasn't any problem with you obtaining FEMA money as a payback to the efforts that you put in.
Okay. And Sherry, is there something as a finance director you wish to say? Oh, no, you're just going to contact. That's fine, if you want to do that. Any questions or comments from the commission? Okay. Is there any public comments in regards? Danny, I know you're on the phone. If there's anything you'd like to say, please feel free to speak up. This is resolution number 2020-59, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, authorizing a procurement agreement between the City of Clewiston and Florida Municipal Power Agency, FMPA, for designated FEMA reimbursement eligible projects. Is there anyone in the public on the telephone that wishes to make a public comment or have any questions in regards to resolution number 2020-59? Not hearing any public comments, the recommended motion is to approve resolution number 2020-59.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Commissioner Rodriguez. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. 2020-60, Mr. Martin.
Yes, this is a resolution also with FMPA. They're the pass-through agency that we're working with on this, and they hold the contract for the services that we're receiving. It's the change order to the engineering support services agreement for the increased design effort and associated expenses related to TRC Inc., who is the consultant that is doing the work through the FMPA for upgrades to the electric substation. I'll defer to the director for any comments he has on the actual projects, but the net result will increase the project allowable cost to about $13,135. So I'll defer to Danny for any comments, and then city attorney any comments.
Okay. Danny, I know that you're on the line. Is there anything that you wish to add about this change order to the Phase 2 project?
No, it's just like Randy explained. It's the consulting group that's drawing for our substation and the work that's up and coming. And they just had to add a little extra work, a little more drawings. So all good.
Okay. All right. Again, this is resolution number 2020-60, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, approving the FMPA change order to the engineering support services agreement and authorizing the mayor to sign. Is there any public comments in person? Is there any public comments on the telephone? Please hit *1 if there's any public comments in regards to resolution number 2020-60. Not hearing any public comments, or is there any questions or additional comments from the City Commission? Okay. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 2020-60? So a motion by Commissioner Peterson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rodriguez. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Resolution number 2020-61.
Yes, this is a resolution that authorizes the submission of an application for another beautification grant from the Florida Department of Transportation to continue the landscaping, project along the right-of-way of, US 27, or excuse me, of the, Sugarland Highway, I should refer to it. The city initiated a project that's been very successful in upgrading the aesthetic along the way by putting up the palm tree project along the route. This would be the final phase, is what's requested here, to apply for $195,000 grant for the installation of 65 additional royal palms along the street from Lopez to the western terminus of the city. You have the preliminary scoping of the project in the agenda material. The city, I have to read all of the past work, but the city has worked on upgrading this throughout the project, and this would carry us to the end. And you see the implications for the city in terms of maintenance obligations and so forth, which would be consistent with what the city has done in the previous phases. This would be submitted as a phase 5, if you will, of the project, but it would be anticipated this would be the final phase and cover the whole area if we're fully funded with the request.
Okay.
I'm glad to answer any questions or defer to staff. Lynn worked on this, our staff member worked on this, and she had done the previous application, and we'll be filing all the documents and putting it together for the requirements of FDOT.
I just had one question, one comment. So the project looks like it takes the trees out to a certain point, and then, well, I mean, it looks like the trees go out to a certain point and then they stop, and then the project looks like it goes on with no trees for quite a distance, but all the way out to the city limits. Is there any reason that we shouldn't stop the project where the trees stop in case we want to come back to it for phase 6 and try to do the median? Or
certainly something we can discuss and consider. I don't know if there've been previous conversations with the DOT on that. I don't know if Danny, if Lynn's on the line, and she might have some insights into that, but we certainly can explore that before we finalize the application and put it in.
So you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, this was a preliminary that was put together, I guess, in the original plan. Obviously, we want to look at that option for additional in the median. I know there's some in the median now.
Right.
In that area, but I do not know the history of why this particular layout was developed.
I don't think it would be a problem, but I don't want to cut off our possibilities by saying the project goes on. If it doesn't seem like it would be a problem to me, but I just
So you don't, the project goes out to the city limits, but the actual irrigation and landscaping don't go out to the city limits.
Right.
Okay. Lynn, are you on the phone?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Is there anything you can add to that?
Well, I think I'm trying to remember. Chad and I spoke about it. He did this design as well as the other phases. And it seems to me he said something about the rules changing for landscaping in the median. And there's also some drainage issues along the highway. So where he was able to place trees, he placed them. But I'm happy to get back in touch with him tomorrow and maybe get with the city manager if there's any, modifications that can be made given y'all's direction.
We can report back to the board. We'd still like to have the authorization to submit. And if we can, if there's any changes, we'll certainly bring it back. But I agree with your thoughts. We want to maximize the option. It may be that it has to come in a subsequent phase. We did talk briefly about this during the budget workshop, but we do need some DOT.
I just want to, I'd like to mention that we did a preliminary budget for this, and Chad thinks it could be as much as $200,000 to do what you have just in front of you now. And the grant, the amount that we're eligible for is $100,000. They may have a little bit more money, but at this point, that's, maybe what we're looking at for funding.
So when the last time we did that, if you recall, I think we did 2 different applications, so that the FDOT could approve them at the same time, which is cost conservation, because the guy's already here doing the work. So if we know
yeah, sure, that is a possibility. Another possibility is that they won't have as many applications this cycle. The grant coordinator said that COVID and other things may be keeping people from applying. So, but the application is due October 1st. So I don't know, how much. It would be nice if we knew what we wanted to have in the design when we made the application.
The grant is approved, the grant agreement will be coming back, and we can make sure it's consistent with what you just mentioned at that time.
And I know, but if they are only going to approve one grant, you understand what I'm saying? We really need to break it up into 2 grant applications and get them approved at the same time, even if the design is whatever.
Well, if we, Lynn, can you comment on that? If we apply for the full 195 with the expectation that the max they would award is 100,000, they won't preclude us. They might offer us 100,000, and then we would be able to break it in the contract.
Yeah, that's right, and that was Daryl's recommendation at DOT that we apply for the whole budget, 195,000.
Okay.
And then, as the attorney said, bring it back with whatever the scope they actually approve to modify the plan for it, and then we'd look at future applications. But that would be ideal if we could match it together and get a better economy on our.
That's what we did in the last one. We just did 2. But if he said to ask for the whole thing, that probably is a good sign they'll approve the whole thing.
Let's hope so.
Okay. All right. Lynn, is there anything else you wish to add?
No, I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Okay, any comments from the public? Any comments from the public on the telephone? Okay. All right. Hearing no public comments, the recommended motion is to approve resolution number 2020-61 unless there's additional comments from the staff or from the attorney or the city manager on this. Okay. A motion to approve resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, authorizing the mayor to apply for, and if the city accepts the beautification grant, landscape construction and maintenance memorandum of agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation. Again, this is resolution number 2020-61. Motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Randy, resolution number 2020-62.
This would authorize another grant application with the Florida Department FERDAP grant, or Recreation Development Assistance Grant. The city had received $50,000 from U.S. Sugar for playground equipment to replace the equipment that was removed when Trinidad Park was renovated some time ago. This $50,000 is not sufficient to fully replace the desired equipment level, so this is to get a matching grant from the state to be able to build it out for a $100,000 project. So we would recommend. Lynn also is working on this project. If you have any questions on her insights, it would be for traditional news going to that park. A similar location, you see the site planning here to where it was previously.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? I know that this is a project that we looked at years ago, and the importance of revitalizing that park for the neighborhood and for the community as a whole. Resolution, and we appreciate the partnership of United States Sugar Corporation with the city and in our parks, and particularly this project, because it has made a big difference. I go right by there every weekend, and there's always activity happening, whether informal little soccer matches or families watching their kids play on the basketball court gets used. Yeah. Again, resolution number 2020-62, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, acknowledging the application to the state of Florida for recreation assistance funding for the Trinidad Park Recreation Complex. Is there any public comment? Any public comments on the telephone? Not hearing any public comments. Anybody else from the staff? Okay. The recommended motion is to approve resolution number 2020-62.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Peterson, second from Commissioner Rodriguez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, resolution number 2020-63, Randy?
Yes, again, I'll refer to Danny, the director, Danny Williams, for any further questions or comments you may have. But we recently had a vehicle involved in an accident, as the members of the commission are aware, where it was effectively total loss. Another driver. This is one of our critical pieces of equipment, the electrical truck for maintenance, boom truck, with the bucket. We would like to get this ordered as quickly as possible so that we're back in line. It wasn't included in the new budget, physical budget that you just adopted earlier in the meeting, and it involves the purchase of an item, truck replacement, as noted in the documentation, for the amount of $159,869 is the bid that we have received for this bucket truck. I'll defer to Danny on it, but we'll be doing this through Sourcewell, that allows us to do contract purchase.
I think what Randy, we're going to try to do, we're looking at maybe leasing a truck. We were checking on some pricing today. Alltech's going to get us a price, and we got one more rental lease price today from another company. It looks like Alltech's going to be the choice. The reason we're going to lease or try to lease a vehicle, it takes 12 to 14 weeks to get a truck, and it's pretty crucial to be down a truck this time of year. So we are going to try to have one in operation until you guys approve this, and so we can move forward. I believe Sherry's also trying to check on the cost of the insurance or what we may be receiving. If you want to comment on that, Sherry.
All right. So just so I'm clear, though, Danny, we need to approve the purchase of this truck, but in the meantime, we're going to be leasing a vehicle until this one comes in because it's 12 to 14 weeks?
Yeah, it takes about 12 to 14 weeks for them to build the truck.
All right. Okay, so, Sherry, I don't know, I know he's put you on the spot here on the insurance for...
Just to say that the truck, just as he said, happened, we knew that it was an essential piece of equipment, so we knew we needed to add it into the budget.
Right.
Not knowing when we would get insurance proceeds, we just put it in the budget. We know we're going to get insurance proceeds because we have replacement costs on it. Right now, as he said, we're just working out the details with the insurance company because we had to have an idea of what we were going to replace, which we have that. That's not a problem. But it takes 12 to 14 weeks to get the truck. Time he can't do without it. So his department is in the process of getting quotes for a rental. And once they do that, we will send it to the insurance company as well. That's where we are with that. But yes, the truck is included in the fiscal year 2021 budget.
So the quotes for the leasing will go to the insurance company on the premise that they'll pay for the lease in the interim?
Well, that's correct. Well, that information will be sent to them, and then to make sure that we know exactly what's going to be covered. Sure,
and the request is for them to...
adequate, that we feel that the city manager can review and work out any that might not be acceptable.
But the insurance policy covers probably rental of...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So, all right. So if there's any issues that, I know y'all will check with the city attorney on the lease part of it, just cover it. Although it's through the insurance company still. Whether we have to do it or they're doing it, I don't know the issues there, or they reimburse us. I'm sure you guys will look at that. But again, the agenda item is for the purchase of an AT41M bucket truck from Alltech Industries, as mentioned by the city manager. Is the resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, authorizing the purchase of an bucket truck from Altech Industries in the total amount of $159,869. Any comments or questions from the manager or from the city attorney on this?
No comments. As long as the lease is within the city manager's authority, which I'm sure it will be, there shouldn't be a problem on a temporary basis.
Okay, all right. Is there any questions or comments from the public? Yes, sir, if you'd like to come forward. In the meantime, is there any public comments from anyone on the telephone in regards to this purchase of the bucket truck from Altech Industries? There's no telephone public comment. Go ahead, Jerry.
Jerry Cochran, just a point of clarification. We've put roughly $160,000 in the budget. We're going to get reimbursed for that. So that's going to create a surplus in the budget of $160,000.
I'm sure that there's contingency funds that it can go into for other departments.
Electric fund. This is only an electric fund. Can you comment on that, Sherry? Did you include the insurance proceeds? I can't.
Yes, sir.
I thought you did.
When I was calculating it, I did take that into consideration because I knew that would be something that would be happening.
So it's not a surplus.
There would be no surplus.
Well, you got a surplus. Okay. So it balances out. All right.
Okay. Estimated with the contingency. When I estimated, that's all the budget information.
Okay.
And I estimated
So
the contingency that was in with that thought.
You plugged it in a different.
Yes.
Money comes back in a different.
Yes,
Okay. Good.
Not knowing when we would get it.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, thanks for the question. Okay. Again, the recommended motion is to approve resolution number 2020-63. I have a motion by Commissioner Peterson and a second by Commissioner Rodriguez. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Mr. Martin, consideration of solid waste fee modifications as we had discussed at the budget workshop.
Yes, as we discussed in the budget workshop, the budget is predicated or was adopted with additional revenue to be reflected from a yet-to-be-approved rate changes in the solid waste fee structure. This is to initiate the process by the commission scheduling a public hearing at the next meeting. Subsequent to that, you have a second reading and adoption at the following meeting is what we would hope in the October and November meetings. This action would call a public hearing for October 19th to amend the current code of ordinances relative to solid waste collection rates. Consider that at those meetings to generate the additional revenue necessary to meet the budgetary obligations.
So this is the consideration of solid waste fee modifications. The recommendation is to schedule a public hearing for October the 19th, 2020 to amend Section 19 of Appendix A of the Clewiston, Florida Code of Ordinances, which establishes the solid waste collection rate. And this is a financial impact for fiscal year 2021 of $168,159.
Those would be the dollars that were budgeted into the budget approved. Obviously, if you choose not to approve the rates, then we'd have to come back and revisit the budget accordingly. City Attorney and I discussed it, and this was the method that we're required to follow. So I'll defer to him if he wants to add to it.
Okay.
Well, all budgets have an estimate of what your revenues are going to be in different amounts, and as a result of fluctuations in those revenues, you have to go back and amend your budget. Sometimes this item will be no different than that. If you choose not to go forward with the rate increase on solid waste, you'll have to amend your budget and make other adjustments somewhere in that to make up the difference.
Okay. So would we need to amend the ordinance if we wanted to build in an automatic increase?
Well, the ordinance, and I won't get too deep in the weeds, but if I could respond to part of that, and then I'll refer to the attorney, but the ordinance right now has language in it, for whatever reason, the city hasn't changed those rates in a long time.
Right.
And the structure of the ordinance includes things that are currently being dealt with in the other utility funds, the electric and water and sewer by resolution. So this would modify the ordinance to allow us to do it in a more traditional fashion like you do your other rates. and features. But that part of it I want to throw in, and then the attorney may want to respond in regard to what you're suggesting. We had talked about that, and that will be part of the recommendation in that resolution form, to have and that factor of the what did we say it was referred to?
CPI or the
Well, it was tied to the
Consumer Price Index or the increase?
No, this one was, that was the way we did it in water and sewer, but this one would actually be tied directly to the landfill fees as they go
Solid
up.
waste, okay.
Follow suit.
Transfer fees,
We'll put forward that, and the city attorney and staff will collaborate to have language that provides that provision in the draft.
Okay.
And Gary, pardon me for cutting that off. You weren't in those discussions, so that's why I asked you.
No, I think you did a great job, and we'll do the resolution to the next extent possible to accomplish that.
Any public comments in regards to resolution or consideration of solid waste fees modifications and setting the public hearing for October 19th, 2020? Any public comments from on the telephone? Okay, not hearing any. Recommended motion is to schedule a public hearing for October the 19th, 2020 to amend Section 19 of Appendix A of the Clewiston Code of Ordinances, which establishes the solid waste collection rates, and again, additional resolutions will come from there. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, I have Commissioner Rodriguez made a motion to schedule the public hearing for October the 19th to amend the Section 19 of Appendix A. Is there a second? I have a second by Commissioner McGahee. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, consideration of committee's ranking of firms' qualification for professional services. Mr. Martin?
Okay, the city advertised some time ago for RFQs for professional services, for all the different functions that the city utilizes. Those were received in June. We had 11 firms to respond. We had a review committee at the staff level that has reviewed those and put together a recommendation to evaluate and rank the cases based on the qualifications in a normal standard that we utilize in doing that. And the recommendation is for the commission to follow the rankings of the firms, to consider the top four, if you will, the rankings. And those would be Johnson Engineering, Inc., Stan Tech, Tetra Tech, and Erdman and Anthony. Glad to try to respond to any questions you may have regarding any of those firms. You have already received those applications or RFQ documents. I know it was voluminous. Again, we were overwhelmed to some degree getting 11. That is really good. And yet we feel that these four are needed to meet our needs going forward, and these four had, for various reasons, in the rankings, had the broad spectrum of services that met our requirements. Next step, of course, would be to recommend that we negotiate continuing agreements for professional services with these four, or attempt to, and then bring those back for formal action of the commission, assuming we can satisfy all the requirements and get a consensus agreement with each of the firms to accept the terms of the continuing service agreement. And going forward, we feel like having those four give us the flexibility we need. We didn't want to have too many. I've heard of communities putting them all in, but I don't think it's fair to them if you don't reasonably think you're going to use them, and particularly the ones that are significant distance away. All of these have presence in the close proximity, reasonable proximity to the city. And so that's part of the process that we used, was their ability to be nearby for their services. But we didn't want to recommend them all and never use some of them. Some of them are good ways away, in Tampa and places like that. So, be glad to answer your questions here.
So due to a potential conflict, I'm going to abstain from voting on this agenda item.
Okay. All right, and I have questions. I know that our charter requires us to have a city engineer, and Johnson Engineering has been the city engineer. So if we, tonight, we accept the committee's rankings of the firms, where do we, at the next meeting, do we actually state that again, or do we come up with a item on the agenda for us to discuss the appointment of the city engineer after we accept the firms of professional services of all four?
Well, unless the city is changing that designation, you don't have to address it this evening.
Okay.
Now, I think what the process here is, as you know, the initial step in the CCNA does not allow the city to take into account costs. You're looking at the most qualified firms.
Right.
And if you agree that that constitutes the most qualified firms, then Mr. Martin and other staff members will start the negotiation process.
Okay.
One of the things that you need to keep in mind here is that you already have a contract with Johnson Engineering. It was a 3-year contract that goes through 5/21. It has the potential of 2 additional extensions to 5/23. This RFP was awarded 3 years plus 2 one-year extensions. So with Johnson Engineering, are you starting the time clock over again with a new contract moving forward? Which would, I think, be the staff recommendation on this, so that all of the contracts that you have line up at the same time.
All right.
I reckon.
And those are some of the things that you'll.
Yeah, and
further.
at this point, I don't anticipate, of course, assuming we're able to negotiate a successful continuing service agreement with all 4 firms, I don't anticipate we would recommend a change in that designation that you currently have. That's certainly the board's prerogative, I guess, to do that. But that's discretionary, so.
I just didn't know. I wanted to go ahead and, because this is, yes, it's the rankings for qualifications of professional services, and there are 4. But I know by their charter we're required to name one. We can't have all 4 of them as the city engineers. I just wanted to bring that forth tonight.
That wouldn't preclude us from using any of the
Correct.
ones on the list. But as you know, some of the statutory changes of late, I've had a discussion with our current engineer with Johnson Engineering. We're limited in certain contracts, particularly those state contracts with grants, to using the same contractor to do the inspection services as well as the design. So we're going to have to use at least 2 on several projects, some that are currently underway in the design phase, Ventura and the bridge and those kind of things. We're going to need a second company. And so this will give us an opportunity to utilize. All of these have a broad range of experiences based on their submitted documents. But the other point I was going to make on that is, as the attorney pointed out, we also have a 5th engineering firm that we have current agreement with. For whatever reason, they failed to meet our deadline for submission, but they are currently under contract, and we could, and we're actually using them on a project right now, and we will likely recommend we continue to use them. And that'll be a discussion I guess we have, is do we continue that 5th one, since they did not go beyond the current term. That's something I guess
you'll talk to Gary about it, and we'll have it at whatever appropriate meeting it is when this all comes back to us.
I see some advantage in having multiple for the same reasons commission members have expressed in the past. It gives us options and so forth, but I don't see it being a huge deviation in our current operating process.
Correct.
It does give us flexibility that we don't currently have with your current number of approved firms.
Well,
but now we only have 2.
Well, and I was happy to see that there were so many that applied for consideration, and the fact that we have 4, I know of 3 that over the years have seen their work and heard their names on different projects. And so I don't know the 4th one, but I know that you guys ranked them as the 4th one on this list. So I look forward to hearing the results of the negotiation and what we have before us going forward. Okay, is there any comments from the public in regards to consideration of committee's ranking of firm qualifications for professional services? Is there any public comment? Not hearing any public comment. There's a recommendation is to have a motion to accept the committee's rankings of the firms and authorize negotiation of continuing agreements for professional services with Johnson Engineering Incorporated, which, as mentioned, already has a contract with the city, Stantec, Tetra Tech, and Erdman Anthony. There a motion, and Commissioner McGahee is abstaining.
Motion to approve.
Okay, have a motion from Commissioner Rodriguez and a second from Commissioner Peterson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next item on the agenda is old business. We have it before us. If anybody has any questions or comments to the city staff in regards to the listing of old business.
Did you order an appraisal of that building?
Haven't yet, but that's on my list to do as soon as this budget's, well, budget's behind us, so that's on my list.
Okay. And then I have one, on TBD for item number 16, which is the redevelopment plan, alley abandonment and easement issues, list of identification. I know that, you had told us, Randy, and I don't know if it was in the budget workshops or last meeting that we had, that there is some interest on some development on the east side of town. I mean, I would like for us to focus on that, and try to see what kind of plan, at least a block or 2 blocks that are in there, that we look at that area and really try to finalize some of the issues that we have and what needs to be done to move forward with redevelopment in that area, and how many, the grants that we would have to apply for.
Yes, ma'am, that's a high priority item.
Thank you.
Any movement on 6 with the P&Z and CRA joint committee meeting possibility?
Yes, we're gonna push forward to have the, at least the P&Z meeting aspect of it is, at their next meeting, which I don't know the date, but we're going to schedule an in-person meeting.
So they'll review that at that meeting, you think?
That's our goal.
Okay.
I will say this, I've had a discussion with the city attorney and at staff level. I think the staff or management can help this process along by making some specific recommendations. So we're working on that to help the process along so that, maybe refine our focus, because it is a broad project and we need to make progress. So that's my intent. I appreciate the attorney's input on that, and we've commented, he shared some thoughts with me, and I've been relaying those to staff.
Okay.
So our goal is to try to have some recommendations to actually share with the P&Z and CRA to help move it forward as soon as possible.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about old business?
Ma'am,
Yes.
number 11, I believe we've completed that, at least to the extent that we're ever going to be able to complete that.
Oh, okay, then we didn't update that in part of this. All right, we'll let that.
Okay, so it's completed, and what are the next steps, if any?
No recommended next steps at this time.
Okay, all right, thank you. And that was last month, was it not, or August, that you completed the search, September, was it,
Yeah,
August or July?
I submitted that memorandum,
Okay.
indicating my conclusions on that, which
Okay.
were not definitive, but they're as precise as I think I can get them.
Okay, all right. Okay. That was under action 11 on the Clewiston Canal. Thank you. Okay. All right, anything else under old business? Okay. All right, comments from the city manager.
I don't have anything to add tonight. I think I got out my welcome the last couple of weeks. I think I'll meet at least twice a week.
What, did we count how many budget, was it 9 budget workshops?
Something like that.
Record.
Over 20 hours, I believe it was.
It's a record.
Not counting myself. Thank you.
But look at what you accomplished.
Yes, there was a lot of work, and it was well worth it.
This week.
You and the, you and the staff.
Yeah. Okay,
I don't have anything to add.
okay, our city attorney? Okay, well, it's good to have you here, of course, and it was good to see you, Dylan, here with us tonight as well. Always nice to have a chauffeur.
Absolutely.
Commissioner McGahee?
Only one comment with regard to, that I've made sort of in the past with regard to like a centralized database to keep track of all the work that Sherry just did with regard to the cost of our water and the cost of different things, garbage pickup, and the canal issue. So it seems like we carry a lot of this information around with us in our head. And I'd like to see like a centralized database somewhere at the city where we can reference those things more easily.
You're talking about like the work that Sherry did on the solid waste and all the information that she gathered for that, and the request from the commission, and we discussed it to do that for the water and to do that for the sewer as well.
Yeah, then also like things like the canal. So I know that was approached several years ago, and now we've got something that's definitive rather than doing it again in 5 more years when no one can remember and maybe Gary's gone and whatever. If there's some place that we can actually access that.
I hope not too.
Okay. I'm sorry, Gary. I didn't mean it like that. But you understand what I'm saying?
In fact, Sherry and I have talked about that, of memorializing, if you will, some of these things, like the golf course history and different things. Just having it so you don't have to recreate it every time it comes up in a budget meeting or whatever. I think it's a great suggestion. So we're going to work hard to come up with a process and a way to have
index and library.
Right. So that we can put that under on old business, Randy, so that we can have it on there. Okay. Yeah, was there any other comments?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Peterson, good?
I don't have it.
Okay, I do. I know that some of us participated and some of us have received the emails about the U.S. Highway 27 DOT Vision Plan. I think it's great. I'm excited about that. I know they're going to have another meeting. And I know it's just a vision plan, but I think it also marries well with our Highway 27, the Main Street program, or the Main Street Highway 27 revitalization plan. It goes hand in hand with the landscaping and everything else that we've been discussing over the years. And so I'm excited to see how that process works out. And it's good to know that the DOT is working with us to envision for the future. Randy, on the I meant to ask you about this earlier today, but the flagpole, where are we at with the Highway 27 flagpole that's been discussed for months? Yeah.
The engineer that's volunteered his services, he's almost, well, he uses his words, I don't remember exactly. He's very close to finishing the application that goes to FDOT for approval of the location that we've identified in the median on the west end, near the city limits line, on the east side of the railroad tracks.
Okay.
And so I haven't seen the final application, but that was late last week, so I'm anticipating getting that real soon. He's done a schematic, if you will, of citing it, and he has the application requirements that FDOT has. He and I have reviewed those, so I'm anticipating getting that very quickly.
So you think maybe it's something we'll have at our October meeting, or does it go to the county first, or it's going to go to us?
Well, I don't know that we have to do any more, because both have essentially agreed on the site. Now we've got to see if FDOT, we'll go ahead and file it with FDOT to see if they have any problems with it.
Okay.
The only thing that I'm a little concerned about is the model that we were looking at is the Moorhaven example, going up the bridge, coming east. I told him that we wanted to try to get the same height. The height he's included in this is in excess. I assume it matches what they have in Moorhaven. I haven't confirmed that with him, but assuming it does, it's higher than the max that's listed in the state guidelines. So I don't know if we're going to run into an issue with the height of the pole, but if we do,
but the DOT will, of course,
they'll give us feedback.
Okay.
They approved that one at some point. I don't know how long that one's been there.
Or if anything's changed. It's been there, I don't know, it's close to 10 years, I'd say.
I don't know if their rules have changed, but based on that, that's the only thing I see in it that gives me any heartburn.
Okay.
They're going to give us a hard time about the height.
Okay. All right. Look forward to hearing more about that. And as a community, it's always an honor to have visitors come to see us. And certainly over the years, we've had Water Management Board members come out and visit with us and get to know our community. And this weekend, we had Water Management Board member Jackie Thurlow-Lipsitz and her husband here visiting the community. And they've enjoyed their visit, and they were traveling from one coast of Florida to the other coast of Florida, and so they decided to spend some time here in the community, and we enjoyed having them here and for them to get to know more about America's Sweetest Town and just the community as a whole. So I'm so glad that the board members are wanting to continue to come see us, and we always extend invites for them to come back to have their meetings here, so hopefully we'll have something like that soon in the future once we get back to a little bit more normal activity. So, is there anything else? Anyone? Okay, if not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So,
A motion to adjourn. Thank you, Commissioner Rodriguez. Meeting adjourned.
Conference